Welcome, everybody. This is episode 2 of the Marist Red Fox Navy Reflections podcast. We're really excited today to have a good crew with us. A group of guys that I am not super familiar with, and kind of an era of Marist rowing that I'm not super familiar with. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce who Bob Missert, class of 79, and he's brought along some of his classmates and guys from his era in the late 70s. Today we've got Pat Brown, class of 78, Dan Gualtieri, class of 78, and Bo Mason, class of 79. So welcome, gents, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah, we, basically just want to talk about your reflections about the team at the time and what your time at Marist was like. And why don't we go around and just introduce yourselves? Tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, where you live now, what you do for a living, family, stuff like that.
Who do you want to start? Me?
Sure, go for it.
Hi, I'm Dan Gualtieri. I'm originally from Syracuse, New York, and specifically Liverpool High School, and we rowed out of basically the Syracuse University, boat facility or rowing facility. I also rowed for the Syracuse Chargers. And where do I live now? I live on the east end of Long Island. And what do I do for a living? I have a consulting business that deals in real estate. I guess that's the simplest answer. As far as the recruiting process, it's interesting because I think we were probably part of either the first or the second best class that our coach, and again, Pat, help me out here.
Bill
who
Austin.
recruited us?
Bill Austin.
Bill Austin, yes. I think we rode for Lenahan first, but Bill was the one that actually sought us out, and it was him that we're extremely grateful for because who would recruit a lightweight? Who would recruit someone under 6 foot tall? But when we came in, there were some amazing rowers and athletic talent that were part of that class of that arrived in the fall of '74. Anyway, what attracted us to the school? The fact that Bill wanted us. Bill got us in. All right, and it was a pretty exciting time as far as the opportunity and the fact that we really felt that we had an extremely competitive program. Pat, I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I'm Pat Brown. Again, started at Marist in '74. Was recruited by Bill Austin, or not recruited, but approached by Bill Austin. I'm a LaSalle College high school grad. Started rowing in 9th grade. Continued rowing till about 30 years old, and now I'm still rowing, but only at the head stuff, but not real competitive now. Dan's right. We were probably the second recruiting class that Bill brought in. The first recruiting class in '73 consisted of half the U.S. youth team. Tony Nezapor, a whole bunch of big name
George
people.
Marist.
And that really impressed the high schools locally. They had a lot of Holy Spirit kids, and Spirit was the top 8 for '73, '74, '75. We got some big guys from Bo, and a couple of St. Joe Collegiate kids came in our class. And I think what happened with Bill is he looked at a lot of our stats, and we were winning a lot of races, but he didn't realize some of us were small.
Tiny, yeah.
I mean, won the Stotesbury, won the Canadian Schoolboys, won this high school national. I was not big. I was maybe 152 pounds on a good day.
Yeah.
And most of the freshmen in the varsity lightweight, we had 5 freshmen, that all rowed in high school, all very talented. Kevin Noon went to the Youth Worlds for the USA 8. Dan out of Liverpool, John Davern out of St. Joe's Collegiate, myself, Jack Boyle out of Father Judge in Philadelphia, and then Winnie Saida was our coxswain, brand new to the sport. Artie Curran was a sophomore, and then you had two old men, two seniors.
Frank
Senior Bonner was there, and
Oral?
Hoyle was where?
Jack Hoyle and Hoover.
Yeah.
Frank Hoover scared the crap out of me. He had a beard and a mustache when we were freshmen, and he was a senior. Biggest arms around. He stroked the lightweight boat the 3 years prior. And then Jimmy Hoyle was there. He was from, I think, Alexandria, Virginia. Hoover was from Monsignor Bonner. Bo,
Was he
your
from
boat was.
Father Judd? No, I'm sorry. I forgot.
Hoover was from Monsignor Bonner, and Jack Boyle was from Father Judge. But we had a pretty talented boat as far as that goes, as far as getting lucky with a lot of freshmen and a senior, a varsity boat. We came back from Florida that year, and we cleaned Princeton's clock and Columbia's clock down in Princeton. Funny story is that I thought we were going to win, so I bet shirts with the stroke man at Princeton. Didn't realize that we had already made the arrangements not to bet shirts because we didn't have.
We only had one shirt.
I think
cut it up in pieces.
We beat them pretty good.
We crushed them.
And I went back. And I was obviously I was small, so I went back to their boathouse and I looked up the stroke man. And I get in a match with him and say, where's my shirt? And he was behind me saying, "Yeah, you go tell him, Pat." And I was like, "Yeah, where's my shirt?" And then they told me we didn't bet shirts, and then I walked away a little humbled, but it's funny.
Anyway,
by that time, Bo was in a pretty crackerjack freshman eight. They had a lot of.
That was another good boat.
You had Paul Scullin, who I went to high school with and came up recruiting.
Grandpa.
Yeah, Grandpa. Gray hair at 15. We called him Grandpa in high school. And he had won the Stotesbury in the 4, and I think they were second at the Nationals. You were in the Holy Spirit's 8, and they were pretty crackerjack. Did you guys beat Bonner, or did Bonner beat you at the Nationals?
I never lost to a crew from Philly.
Okay, so Tatey was in that boat from Bonner, so that was a pretty good boat you had. And Kevin Newman was in that boat too. So.
Yeah, no, I know because we were working one day or going rowing, and I had said something to Jack Boyle, and he really took it to heart that he said something like his sophomore year in some 4 or something, he beat a boat from Holy Spirit, so that was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
But I rode down in Holy Spirit. I rode 4 years in high school.
Felder in the boat. Yeah, a lot of good guys in that boat.
Yeah, they had a lot of. Yeah, we had 85 people on my crew team. I guess my freshman year.
Wow,
That,
85?
85.
At
Fifth
Holy
aid
Spirit.
at Holy Spirit.
In high school. Okay.
And who was
In high school,
the coach? Because you had a really famous coach. Who was the
Dan.
coach?
Well, there was a few guys, but Stan Bergman.
Bergman, right.
I'm sure he's in the Hall of
that's
Fame
right,
or whatever.
Yeah, Penn. He coached Penn too for a long time.
Yeah, then he went to Penn for a real long time, and then there was Mr. Garvin. He was a great coach. Larry Connell, I think he went to Penn.
Larry Connell went to Villanova. He
Villanova?
coached at Penn, but he rode at Villanova with my brother, and then he coached at Penn.
Okay.
He became a lawyer, right? Larry Connell's a lawyer?
I believe so. Yeah, he was pretty much. I haven't seen him in a while, but he was involved with the rowing for a long time. But the best thing about us is we used to have to walk the boat in the water in February down by us. There was no docks, of course. So you got the glass and the fishing hooks and the rocks and everything. It was beautiful. You had to walk like a quarter mile to the water. And lucky for me, I was a bowman my first 2 years. So you know what that entails. You have to, you stay in the water while everybody else gets the oar, hops in the boat. And I'm the last guy in the boat. I'm like, it was wonderful. But anyway, it was a good time. And pretty successful all through high school. And I took a year off out of high school, and then I went up to Marist College and had a really wonderful time one weekend. And I decided to go up there because there was a few people from Holy Spirit that had gone up there. The Tracys were up there, John and Greg. Joe Gunther, Jack McCabe was up there for a year or two. Paul Monar, Nicky Mancuso. Yeah, I don't know, 8 to 10 people, whatever. And it was when I got there, like you guys said, there was a lot of we had a lot of guys on the crew team in the beginning there. And you know, we had a good time and that's why I went to school, was to row and enjoy myself.
Yeah, I
But
guess at that
was
time,
nice.
if you didn't go Ivy League, Marist was hot on the ticket there for
Yeah.
Philadelphia
Yeah,
and Holy Spirit, because
a lot of guys here. I don't know. They were very good. I think the problem was happened is when the guys ahead of me is Greg and George and Pat and those guys, they rode in the fall, and it was very competitive, and Mr. Austin put a lot of the younger guys in the boat instead of like John Tracy, who was a senior, and Joe Gunther, who was a senior. And they opted not to row in the spring. But you know, what are you going to do?
Well, that's an interesting point. The two classes came in together, and we displaced all these, upperclassmen, and it did
Yeah.
create a little bit of dissent in the program, and maybe a bit of dislike for Austin. I mean, to this day, I can't be more grateful to this guy for the opportunity that he gave me. But I know that some guys still harbor, a little animosity because of that. But
Yeah, great guy. But you guys, you guys were awesome.
yeah,
Like our freshman year, that lightweight, was there 5 freshmen in there?
yeah,
In
five.
and that Danville race, it was like it's somebody's hand. It was everybody was in like a half a boat, right, or a boat.
Pat, you remember
Finals.
that? I don't. It's a blur.
Yeah, no, it was. I was up on it. Yeah, you got. What did you guys get? Fourth?
Fourth or fifth,
Pat?
but we were right there with Coast Guard and FIT.
Yeah,
In fact,
that was
going into the
that was
island, I think we had like a bow ball, but when we started bringing the rate up, I think we got to about 38, but we got the wash off the wall. We were in lane 1, and
yeah.
and I don't know what happened, but hey, I think it was 3 seconds between first and sixth.
Yeah, that was an awesome race. Nice day, and
I think we were
great. You
sub
guys
6
had a
minutes there with Wooden Oars.
I mean, there
By
was
the way,
definitely
guys-
some great recruiting classes. I mean, when I came in fall of '75, we were one of, I think 16. We had total 26
Wow.
kids on the team, ended up rowing, but there were 16 experienced kids. But Bill and Marist had the recruiting model down. So the kid would come to visit in the spring. You'd pick us up at the train station. You'd immediately take us up to the 8th and 9th floor of Champagne. And that's pretty much where you stayed all weekend, other than 6 o'clock in the morning. And by the time you left, you wanted to come to Marist. So you put on a good show. You put on a good show.
Well, you were guests of Belter and Davern,
Right.
and again, us guys from upstate New York, we kind of had this special, let's face it, the kids from Long Island were a lot more mature. You guys down south were probably a lot more mature. Us guys from upstate New York, like this was all, living alone or living away from your home was all new to us. So we were especially close with John and Dave Belter and the guys, any of the guys from upstate. That would include Mike Belter. But yeah, we were, when you guys came down, I remember, we were very friendly, but overly, like positive and trying to get you to join the program. And I'm glad you had a great time. And, we're fortunate to have you as part of the program.
We had such a great time that Artie Kern and John Davern picked us up at the train station at like noon.
Mm-hmm.
We went up to the 9th floor zoo, Champagne, proceeded to party with you guys until we realized we had a 4 o'clock meeting with Dean Flynn in admissions. So we had to leave the zoo to go to the 4 o'clock meeting with the Dean of Admissions. And then he pretty much gave us the 30-minute, the Marist College, why you should come. And then he looked at us and said, do either one of you have any questions? And Richie looked at me and I looked at Richie and we go, no, we're good.
Well, but Bo, we should apologize to any of the viewers because we are the reason why they changed the drinking age from 18 to 21. We are that group.
Just the two of you?
Well,
Yeah, not me.
the 8th and 9th floor of Champagne was probably the
Now,
reason.
that was great because as I got closer to the drinking age, which started around a little, like sophomore year in high
16.
school, they went from 21, and as I got closer to to 18, they just kept dropping it and dropping it and dropping it. Marist College was 18 years old at the time, which was
And the bars
you know,
closed at 4. When Alexander went to Marist, he was in the honors program. So the 8th and 9th floor was an honors program floors.
Yeah, that's
it
where
was
they put
honors
all
when
the-
I was there too,
Yeah, it
Bob.
was
That's where they
honors.
put all the
Yeah,
well-behaved
they
kids.
honored us.
So Alexander, I think, was in 825, I think. And
Wow.
I think I might have been
That
an
was Bosbury.
825.
was that
that
your
was
group?
825
825,
for,
yeah.
for
We were
a while.
925. We were above both.
Right. And I was having flashbacks, and I was trying to explain to Alexander what this was like, and now it was just a whole lot different. And
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I
back
was
then it
just
was
having
eight,
flashbacks.
9 were all male the students up there, and then as you went down, it was every other side was male or female.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It was all. Yeah, it was a zoo. It was a zoo. But anyway, enough of that. But carry
So
on.
talk to me,
Campbell's
guys,
different.
about like I don't know much about like what the race calendar even looked like. Like who would you say were your big rivals or rival team? Like
It,
what race, obviously you're going to the Dad Vale at the end of the year. Were there races during the season
it
that
was
were pretty
we
consistent that you guys really looked forward to?
yeah,
President's Cup.
we had an impressive schedule, I have to say that. And I think the weakest was was probably URI, but we were racing the small Ivies, Wesleyan, Amherst,
Trinity.
Trinity, yeah,
Williams,
Williams,
UMass.
yeah.
Okay.
And it was an impressive schedule. In every school we went to, we felt like we were the dummies. What are we doing here? Because these guys are these are serious colleges we were racing against. I don't know, Pat. You had a lot more confidence than most of us, but
Yeah, but
I just remember,
the fall schedule was also really good.
yeah,
Yeah, you had the head
For us.
races.
The head of Connecticut, right? Head
Yeah,
of
head of Connecticut, head of
head of the
Charles.
Schuylkill, head of the Charles, and then the Frostbite Regatta.
And then
Yeah,
we go down to
it was an
Philadelphia
extensive
too in the middle of the
schedule, yeah.
season. I guess we went against LaSalle and Temple a couple times in St.
Yeah.
Joe's.
Where was the Frostbite Regatta? Where was that one? Is
In
that
Philadelphia.
Philly. That was in
Okay.
Philly. That was a time when St. Joe's had a guy named Sean Dre in 7-seat. Sean Dre was an Olympic sculler for Ireland,
Oh,
heavyweight sculler. He's a legend. And I
Pat.
guess, and when we were in there, Tatey was at St. Joe's. He was rowing for Joe's.
Pat, when did we race against MIT? Like I just remember having one of their shirts. I don't remember half the
remember that.
races I don't remember, but we did really well. I don't remember losing a lot until later, like later
The Vales. We lost the Vales, and I think we lost one to Trinity by like a bow ball.
Hmm.
Probably the same thing, a headwind, and
Yeah.
were there teams that you guys had like a
I don't know when we
particular
raced MIT.
rivalry with or
Sorry,
like some
what- say that again?
animosity towards?
Animosity.
there are other years.
What's that, Pat?
I
Well,
didn't get an MIT cert, so that was probably your other years.
Okay. Well, the President's Cup had a big draw. Back then, how many
It did.
schools came to that?
Yeah, we raced my brother's boat from Villanova. They were like,
Villanova, Pat.
yeah, they were in second. at the
Manhattan
Vales the
was
year
there?
before. Manhattan.
Do you guys
Yeah.
remember the one year that it was all canceled and Manhattan, I think, stayed on campus or stayed nearby, and we had a little get together with those guys?
Don't remember, Bob. Don't remember. It's all a blur.
That's what I told Bob when he asked me about this. I said,
I'm
I
getting
don't
discon-
remember.
There was a blank there.
But
but
URI came up quite a bit. I remember that.
yeah, I remember never losing to URI. I remember
Yeah,
Georgetown.
George,
Georgetown.
George
did.
raced
Georgetown,
Georgetown.
yes.
Yeah.
Georgetown,
went
I
down
think it
there
came
to
down in the
watch.
fall or went one time
No, we went down there and stayed on their campus.
at Georgetown.
Yeah. Right,
Nice.
Pat?
I can't remember Georgetown.
All right.
There you
I
go.
remember
It happens. It happens. You know.
Yeah, it was remember the boathouse was next to the Watergate. I remember that. So anyway, selective memories. So but yeah, that as far as our rivalry, I don't remember like later on, yeah. Anyone we lost to, they were our rivals,
yeah.
but other than that.
And anyone who had family members in the other boat, they
Oh,
were my
yeah.
rival.
Yeah.
Did you guys have like, what were like major goals, when you were sitting down together at the beginning of the season? Was it just focused on Vales? Was the IRA in the picture? Like, what were kind of the goals each year?
Well, I think for us it was win the Vales, go to the sprints, right?
Yeah.
Don't win the Vales, don't go to sprints, maybe break down and go into the IRAs. So Dan, myself, Artie Curran, and Jim Palatucci went to the IRAs in a straight four, heavy four. We got to the finals. I think we were second in our heat to Penn's heavy. And our times were fast, but Syracuse has a way of throwing a headwind at you when you're lightweights in the finals. And we went from I think we're competitive in the first 500, and then we just started slowly going back to fourth. I believe we came in fourth in the heavy straight four.
You were saying that was the year that Greg Tracy and Pat O'Rourke,
They rode the pair.
they rode the pair and they came in second.
I'm not sure if they were second or third. I think
Second or
Wayne
third.
State won it. Wayne State had a guy named Chris Richard, who I knew from high school. He was out of Detroit. So there were two Detroit guys. Chris was on the USA team for youth, and I think he actually went a pair to the Worlds with his partner from the IRAs.
So what happened then? You tell me, what happened the night before?
Okay, the night before, a couple guys in a pair came into our lightweight quadrant, our little dorm room at Syracuse University. It was Greg and Pat O'Rourke issued for a pillow fight, and pillows were flying. And somehow my thumb landed against Greg's face and broke his nose right before the finals of the pair race. So I haven't talked to him since. But he had a tough time breathing, I'm pretty sure. And they were a fast pair. Pat O'Rourke was a USA rower for heavyweights in youth, and he made like 3 world teams from sophomore year through senior in high school. That's why a lot of the kids from Philadelphia went up there, is because all these kids from USA team in Philadelphia, that's where it was based most of the time, went to Marist. If they didn't go to Marist, they went to the Ivy Leagues.
But Pat, back to Campbell's question, our goals. Our boat, it was kind of like, half the boat was there, because we wanted to be, the best at the sport. And the other half wanted to be the best students, in the school. So we had guys that were, Jack and I can't think of Jim Coop. They were focused on.
They were students.
And getting into med school, and we hated them for that. Jimmy Hoyle, same thing, focused on,
I mean, 4 guys. Our freshman year, 4 guys. The 3 of us went down to my house and we trained for the national team. I mean, our goals weren't specific to just Marist and Dad Vales and sprints. A lot of us wanted to make
we wanted to get to the
team.
next level. Yeah.
And there was very few lightweight. Back then, I think they had an 8, a double, and a single. So the single was either Klokatsky or Belden every year, and then they'd switch off and throw Scott Roop in there, and that would be the single double, and then maybe Paul Fuchs, and then there was the 8. And so we all went out for the 8.
You could do the trials in the 4.
Yeah,
that was the open
straight
trials. Yeah, and we should have done that, but we kind of
went to the camp instead as freshmen, and some guys got further than others. Some guys I knew in high school that I knew pretty well got further along than we did.
The camp experience was pretty daunting. I mean, we did that. We were way too young, very inexperienced. I did it again in 77. I did it in 79, and I did it again in 80. 81 probably would have been my year, but I had to move on, you know.
Yeah, moving on.
Well, Clifford, he left Marist College after I think a year,
Yeah.
and he ended up going up to Northeastern, and he ended up they had a lot of guys from South Jersey up there at Holy Spirit, and Northeastern was very good back in the late 70s, somewhere around there. He ended up him and a girl from his hometown in Middletown, Connecticut. They both made the Olympic team,
Wow.
United States Olympic team in 1980, and we all know what happened with that. They
Yeah.
Carter
I think
they
he was
boycotted the Olympics.
he was two man in the 8. I bumped into him down in Philly after a race. He was all excited, but then they just sort of cut the cord.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I know. I
But,
remember Bo and Tim had an awesome pair themselves. They won.
we had an
won-
awesome pair themselves, and Marist College was kind enough. We tried to get up to the IRAs, and they were Ron Petro, nixed that whatever that trip to the IRAs. I was very sad about that.
So
It's not all
how did that work? Like, were there certain standards that you guys had to hit to go to the IRA in a given year, or was that kind of up to the school, or like?
I don't know. I don't know exactly what the story was, but they had sent a pair up there for probably 2 or 3 years, and like Pat said, they sent the 4 up there.
Right.
So Tim and I had rode a couple head races in the fall and did fairly well. And then after the IRA, after the Dadvilles, we were ready to go, to go up there, and all we wanted to use was the school name. We would have, funded whatever, but they said no, so we didn't end up going.
Mm.
What was
So-
the IRA like back then? Like, it sounds like you guys were living in the dorms on campus. Was that pretty typical? Like did the whole regatta just stay at Syracuse University, or like what did that look like?
we stayed at the dorms.
Yeah.
Did
Well,
the
the
other
IRA
schools that were there
was
do that
after-
too?
What's that?
Or did
What
the
was
other
the-
programs that were at the
Yeah.
IRA, were they all staying on
Yeah.
campus?
Well, remember the IRA was after Syracuse got out of school in May, so the whole place
Yeah.
was empty.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, got to see Clockwork Orange there in their auditorium.
yeah. Remember that was also during the time when the state had the Empire State Games. So so that went on later after the IRA, midsummer. So they did the same thing. All the athletes stayed at the campus.
Yeah, I remember being in the dorms at Syracuse, going to their cafeteria, and all the Penn was there, and I knew a bunch of guys at Penn, and of course all of our competition was there. There was an incident between us and Trinity's 4 width. One of our bowman, our tower, I think his name was Dan, cut them off going into the dock, and
Oh, I beat them into the dock. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had some words like, yeah, well, we made the final, so we deserve to be in the dock before you. So we're at the cafeteria and we're standing in line, and this big, huge gorilla from Trinity comes up to me, and I'm like a little guy. And he's like, were you in that 4 to cut us out? I'm like, maybe.
Probably.
And in front of me is like Rick Pazuski, who was stroking Penn's heavy 8, who I knew from high school. And next to him was like Sean Colgan. And they're like, hi, Pat, how you doing? What are you doing up here? I see all of us LaSalle guys are stroking a boat up here. And the kid from Trinity just sort of like, oh, okay. Talk to you later sometime.
Good memory, Pat.
Yeah, maybe that's bullshit, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good, Pat.
We had a little swagger sometimes, I think.
Pat, you had the swagger. They called it, by the way, for the viewers, they called him Cocky Pat. And
Cocktail Pat.
Well, Cocktail Pat too. but
Cocktail,
Pat
cocky,
was-
interchangeable.
Ah,
Cocky
I was-
Pat was. I learned the Philadelphia start. Like if we were doing whatever, whether it was a seat race or we were doing starts or rowing against the heavyweights, it was always ready, set, and Pat would go on the set before go or whatever else. He'd always cheat off the start.
Cheat off the
good
start.
move. Good move.
There's
Kevin Noon.
Kevin Noon.
So we got some pictures from
Oh,
you,
please don't.
your
Please.
generation that I'm gonna flip through.
Dave
Please don't.
Belter.
Hey, hon, come here.
So on the far left, who's on the far left?
That's Neil Lawrence. Large anus.
Yeah, because he
What's
was
his-
tall, he
Neil,
was taller
Neil
than you. He
came
was
from
like
a different
6'7".
sport, right?
6'10"?
He was
Yeah,
a-
he's the tree from Troy.
Yeah, he
But-
was the center on the basketball team.
Yeah.
Yeah, McHugh got him to row.
Okay.
Joe
He's a-
McHugh.
Big boy.
He's big.
Oh, big boy.
Shout out to Joe McHugh. He'll probably be watching this. And then there's Dave Belter, Mike Belter's brother, both St. Joe boys. And then and that's
Wait, who's in the background? Is that
Kevin?
Mike?
That's Mike.
that's Mike Belter in the background. Yeah.
And the shiny head is Bill Austin.
Right.
Yeah. Let's see what else you got. We could read Campbell's emails.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Did I lose you guys? Just a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Here we go.
It doesn't take much to lose me.
All right. Yeah. What else we
Oh
got?
my God,
I tell
please.
you what struck me about these pictures is the hairdos were
yeah,
just
the
truly
mullet.
extraordinary.
Look at Prince Valiant, Dan
The
Gualtieri.
mullet. The mullet.
We don't want 20% off.
All right, that's how I got my name. This guy here, Frank Hoover
From Hoover?
from Hoover. We were up on a recruiting trip, Paul Scullin and I guess Tony Nezaport took us over to the seniors table. And Frank was a junior going into senior year. And he said, Bill Austin's recruiting coxswains? And I kind of said, well, I'll have your seat.
You
He
got,
said, oh, cocky, aren't you?
you got John Davern, another St. Joe's
Yep.
Buffalo boy behind him.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, that's John Davern. What's the next one, Campbell? There you go.
Ah, Winnie.
And it's Winnie. And then
Oh.
to the
Winnie
bottom-
Dave.
Wrestlers.
Dave Belter, Bobby Turner, Paul Scullin, Neil Longinus.
and Butch Joseph, the
Butch
legend.
Butchie.
All right.
And in between Paul and Neil, with the finger sticking through Neil's nose, is Bo.
I would think that's, yeah.
Is that you back there behind him?
That
I
down
believe
in,
so.
is that
That's
the
Bo.
Temple Boathouse behind you guys?
I'm
down in Philly?
scratching Neil's
Yeah, that's the
nose.
public house, Temple Boathouse.
That's the Elephant House, right?
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of boathouses there now.
So this was the 75 spring trip. This is before my time, year before. This was the 75 FIT trip.
Look at those pants. Those are great.
There's
No,
Jim
but,
Browning.
Joe Eckelman, by the way, was I don't know if you guys know the history of Joe, but
So
Ed
hold on a second.
Rose-
So Joe Eckelman is the far right with the
With the
red polo
pants.
shirt and
Yeah.
this flat pant. He was the lightweight coach.
yeah. But
Great guy.
Bill recruited him to coach the lightweights, and took a lot of pressure off of Bill. But God sent to our program, and he was, I guess, a math and computer science major at FIT. So he was the one that arranged the training down there at FIT, and a friend of Bill Jurgensen, and rode with Bill. And I don't know, it was maybe Pat, help me out here. I know he was in a pair with Bill.
He was also in a touring eight that went to Henley out of
Yeah.
Florida with the Florida All-Stars type of boat with
Yeah.
Jurgensen and him and a few
But
other
Joe
guys.
was just a beast, just a beast. And
Uh,
so got a job at IBM. He would come in. Back then, at IBM you had to wear a white shirt and a dark tie, and he would come basically ready to go to work, and he'd get us on the water at 10 to 6. And man, we were off that water at what time, Pat? Like 10 to 8, and they'd race off to get to work.
He'd race
at
off.
IBM. Yeah.
Now next to Joe, that's Mike Belter, and then George
George
Schaefer,
Schaefer,
and Dan Gualtieri, and then next to Dan and behind, who's that?
Kevin
behind?
Noon. That's
Kevin Noon.
Kevin Noon, Bobby Sneeden,
Bobby
Greg-
Sneeden, of course.
Dick Tracy,
Greg Tracy, Chip Reardon,
Frank Hoover,
Vancouver, and then who's next to Artie on the right?
Pat O'Rourke, and Jim Browning.
Okay.
Jim Browning went to the prep. He's underneath Frank Hoover, and then Artie, and then Pat O'Rourke from the prep. I think Jim
Okay.
Browning is a reverend at the University of Pennsylvania Hospital.
Right. Yep.
Wow.
And that's the some of the
Same
boys.
trip?
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been
I just remember everyone getting so wicked sunburns, like just wicked sunburns.
That hasn't changed. We still do that every year.
Yeah.
Their practice.
Soon as the first warm day comes, everybody gets their sunburn going.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
That's Kevin, Artie, Frank, John Davern, and
Jim Hoyle.
what's his name?
Well, it was Jim Hoyle.
Second, guys.
Second guy, no, it's
Well, the second guy was Jim.
Jimmy Hoyle?
Yeah.
okay.
It's Kevin, Jim, Artie, Frank, and John.
Frank had those fake glasses on.
Yeah. And again, the FIT campus was just beautiful. It was just like was heaven. I don't know.
Hey, Dan, I wouldn't know. We were in Poughkeepsie, and Joe McHugh used to tell us that there was like a storm area right around FIT down there, and you guys will be fine.
What,
Yeah.
did you guys have to wear Wappingers Falls?
Wappingers, I believe it was Wappingers Falls, and then we made a trip down to my neck of the woods, and we rode against Holy Spirit, I believe,
Wow.
during that spring break.
I guess we were lucky then. We got to go on a spring break.
You were very lucky. Yeah, Poughkeepsie wasn't that good in the over the spring break.
So who we
The
got
gray
left?
skies.
Who we got left
gray
to right on the left? Is that Bobby? Who's that?
That's
Bobby Turner.
Whackball Turner.
Bobby Turner. It's Bobby. It's Ricks, right?
Yeah, and Paltucci, Noon,
Paltucci.
Mike
Mike
Somar. Who's that guy on the right?
Dan Gualtieri.
I think he's looking.
Okay,
he's looking for
guys.
something in his pocket. I don't, Danny. What,
No,
are you
what guys? Let me explain. What happened?
what are you looking for in your pocket? I don't know.
No, what happened was.
He was scratch.
Excuse me, but what happened was we had to do weigh-ins, and I got down there and I was like, I don't know, I must have been like over 165, so I had to like run like 5 miles, and I was like, like trying to get my pants on while this photo was going on, because I had to strip down to nothing for this weigh-in, and I think I made it by like a half a pound, Pat.
Doctor. All right, that's a good story. You go with that one. That's better.
Yeah, go with that one.
And this had to be post race.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Done.
Who's this?
Mike Belter.
Is that the unit that you guys
Joe had
actually
his hand
wore?
on that one.
No, I don't know. I think Joe might have did a little.
Yeah,
A little photoshopping.
Yeah, that looks it.
This was that 72, that 70, the freshman crew that went to the IRAs.
That's the one that sank, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Willie Crawford, Bobby Sneeden, those guys. Oh, there's
Now,
the pair.
is this before the broken nose? They took this picture.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't
Greg
want
is
that
on
getting
the
out
It's
there.
got a black eye in it.
Yeah. Greg Tracy's on the left and Pat O'Rourke on the right. So I'll have to zoom in later and see if I can see his broken nose.
It's fun, Bob. It's funny because we've all now seen Boys in the Boat, and just looking at these these pairs and these again, these aren't carbon fiber blades either. I just remember we rode in those same boats from the 1920s. That's what we started in. We
I
started.
was gonna
in
say,
Sweet Lake.
what did the equipment look like? Were you guys, purchasing a lot of used boats at that time? Like
Well,
what?
we had a new
that look like?
we had a new plastic Schoenbrod.
Yeah, it was like 2 years old, Pat, when we got there. The
2
year
years old.
before it was
It
new.
was it was a separate boat. What are they called?
A sectional, right?
Sectional.
Yeah.
And we were
Yeah,
started.
it was Italian. It was Italian name.
But in high school, we rode in those same boats, Boys in the Boat, with the sweep blades, and then until you got to like JV or varsity, then our high school rode in a used Stemfleet from Penn, and we had the cocker, is that it? The spoons, and
Yeah.
but when we got the Marist, it was like, wow, we got a brand new plastic Schoenbrod. So it was like like the Cadillac of boats.
Was it much lighter in comparison?
Oh yeah, I mean the Stemfleet was like like really easy to row, and this thing was so much lighter and whatever, quicker off the start.
I'm not sure, because in the midsection, you had to join you had to join it together, and there was a lot of bolts there.
I think
So-
wasn't the Donaronica, wasn't that the one that was the sectional, the Donaronica?
No, ours was a show and broad.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's Artie Kern, smiling Artie Kern coming out in the morning, always has a
Don
smile on his
Bosco.
face.
Yeah.
Boathouse looks the same.
Oh, that was the other thing, is that these trips, you know, we had whatever, you know, Austin doled out the stipends, and then, you know, people drove down in their, whatever, their parents, the car that parents
Just
gave
found
to
your
go to
own
college
way.
in.
You got money, Dan?
No, but I went in this car. I think I don't know who took the picture, but I was in the back of that Volkswagen. That
Yeah,
was
back
going all the way
then-
down to
Is
Florida.
that the same Volkswagen that's in this picture?
No,
No, it was probably the one he picked Richie and I up at the train station. It was the yellow Volkswagen. I remember.
Yeah.
The yellow Volkswagen. he picked
There's a
up.
lot of Volkswagens.
And it said Joe Eckelman and Pat Brown.
We
Yeah.
used to call behind Joe Eckelman's back, we called him Larry Fine. Because he looked
The
like
Three
one of the Three
Stooges.
Good guy, Dom. Great guy.
Great
Yeah.
guy.
He was really,
And to one of your questions, it's like, you know, in other sports like football, you had these Neanderthals coaching you. And in this sport, you know, we had, you know, guys that actually, you know, had a vocabulary that, you know, was pretty close to, you know, a 700 on the SATs. You know, so in high school, we had, you know, a graduate from Penn, a graduate from Brown, and then Joe, was just this amazing character, but just a really rock solid good person and just a great role model.
Yeah,
Yep.
he kind of brought the scientific method to rowing for us.
Yeah, he had that science approach to it. Yeah.
Mhm. And this is Larry Striegel.
Larry Striegel.
He was a great coxie. He rode lightweights a little bit, but he was a tremendous coxie.
He's
That's-
singing.
It's
He's
amazing
not
how
doing
much
anything.
the equipment has changed.
You
Yeah.
think?
Oh
Hmm.
yeah.
Now Larry is making a turn on that rudder with the oars not in. They're out of the water. He should
Only you would
only
pick
turn
that
the
up.
rudder when the
You
oars
would
in the
pick that
water.
up.
And there's
Look
our
at that
historian,
truck in the
Joe
background.
Piro. Joe Piro was the only one that had the camera, so he was the one taking all the pictures.
Joe took most of the pictures. Yeah, Joe
Yeah.
stayed with it for 2 years, but then he was always around with a camera and kind of archived the stuff going on after his 2 years.
Now he's a successful musician. In fact, he played at our reunion a couple of years ago. It was
Yeah,
great.
that was cool.
Well, Joe is an adjunct professor at SMU teaching communications, but his real passion is music, and does that Friday night, Saturday night, Sundays, and whenever.
Yeah, it was great. It was great having him. He's really good. And this
Yeah.
character here, I think he was resting for an IRAs. I think that's what this one is.
Yeah.
What do you think, Pat?
I think I was passed out. That was probably after our first. That was probably after our first practice or our heats. But I did notice when we got up to Marist, outside of the cross country team, we were the only squad out there that all had Gazelles, Adidas Gazelles, and running shoes, as opposed to a lot of the other schools using Converses and things.
Yeah.
They used to have the high tops. We didn't have that.
Oh,
Most
that
of it
was
had
a
running
fun-
shoes.
a funny story that I was never, quite accustomed to is I think it was Joe McHugh, one of our first practices as freshmen, getting in a van, driving us 15 miles up the road and saying, okay, you're going to run back to the school. And then saying, okay, we'll hitchhike, what's the big deal? And he was there at every mile clocking us to see what our time was, because he wanted us to be consistently, consistent times over the next, 14, 13, 12 miles. So that kind of traumatized me for the rest of my life.
Oh,
Well,
that I
first of all, Joe was we were lucky to have him as our freshman coach. He was a fantastic coach. I still talk to him frequently. He's a good friend. He's a good man. But this picture here, this needs a little explanation, because the kids that are going to watch this now, the new kids, they have no idea of this tradition. To the far left is Pat Brown to the far right is Dave Belter. And Pat, why don't you explain what this was? Because I don't think it would be sanctioned nowadays.
Froze up, Bob.
I froze up?
Well, Pat, we had done a couple of those, but one year the turkey trot was how many miles could you put in, and you won like a case of beer. So I remember doing that one year. I can't remember who we did it with, but the goal was to whatever, put 100 miles in between 4 guys.
Was that in a
Just
day
for a case of beer.
or in a week, or like
No,
what was the time?
One day, one
One
weekend
day.
day.
5 bars or 4 bars, mile and a half in between each. Now we were stacked. I could run, Mike could run. Don was like second in the state in cross country in high school for New York. This guy here went to Farrell. He was a cross country runner. This guy here couldn't drink. Well, yeah, he could. So could this guy.
Well, it tells you, so you started at the 8th floor of Champagne and you ran to Frank's, which was the bar
Frank's,
on the
right?
street. You right across the street from Marist was Frank's. And then you would chug a pitcher. And then from Frank's,
You would try to chug a pitcher.
right. Then the next guy ran to the Caboose, which is now what, Tavern 123, Campbell? Tavern.
Maybe, I
21.
guess I haven't been in Poughkeepsie long enough to know.
It's down on up at Duane Street. It's an upscale restaurant now. And then you went down to Mike's Tavern, which was the river station, and you ran back to the I think it's
Alpine Rose.
Street. Yeah, and then you ended up going. I thought the Brown Derby was part of that. But
Oh,
then-
the Brown Derby was definitely part of that.
yeah, I remember. I ran one year. I ran the last leg. It was a Sunday night, and I had a run from Mike's all the way to back to the Caboose or something, and it was dark, and I'm running that back road, the cobblestone road, wondering what the heck I was doing at 8 o'clock at night on a Sunday. But
I assume this was just a Marist event, not a rowing
Yeah.
team.
no, this was a Marist College. Yeah, Marist
It's the
College.
whole school.
And then the last leg, you had to run from, I think, Frank's, you had to run all the way up to the 8th floor. And then the drink, and it was a relay race, but Pat's team won a couple of years, I think.
Yeah, we won 2 in a row. And I ran the last leg. It finished at the 8th floor, and you had to chug it at the 8th floor. That was tough.
Pat, look at the shirt you're wearing. So we beat Fordham.
Yeah, we beat Fordham
Yeah.
and Columbia. We went
Yeah.
down to New York
Yeah.
and beat the crap out of them.
It's the 77 lightweight 8.
Here you are at home. I recognize that bridge.
Mhm.
Pat Brown sitting 4, Dan Gualtieri sitting bow. But yeah, Jeff DiCarlo stroking. Artie was 7. Palatucci was 6. Dave Coper, another Philly Father Judge boy, followed by Brown, Jim Coob, Father Judge, right? And Jack Boyle in 2. And then Danny. And then was that Larry Striegel was coxswain, right?
Mhm.
So what did the team look like with there being a lightweight crew? How separated were the lightweights from the rest of the team? Like, was it kind of run as a separate team on its own, or was it part of the main team and you just happened to have 8 guys that were lightweights?
Nah, it ran as the same team until we started beating the heavyweights.
Well, no.
I'm sorry.
It was.
No
it
offense,
was,
Bo.
Pat. For the
No
first
offense
2 years
taken,
with-
Pat.
For the first 2 years with Joe Eckelman, it was run separately because Bill Austin focused on the JV heavyweights and the varsity heavyweights, and Joe Eckelman just focused on the lightweights. And then Gary Caldwell took over and kind of folded it into one team. And again, I don't know how well it worked, but yeah, we would just beat the crap out of the heavyweights and cause all sorts of strife, like people throwing glasses of water at each other at breakfast because they didn't like the way morning practice went.
I think it was our freshman year. We were training with the varsity heavies, and we were doing pieces, and Eckelman and Austin were in the same boat. And it was down in Florida, and we were supposed to do steady state, and you're supposed to hit 34, 30 strokes at 34, what have you. And Greg Tracy was stroking the heavy boat at the time. And Kevin and I were 8 and 7. We were whispering back and forth and said, let's really piss them off. Let's go 34 and a half off the first 2 or 3 and start a 1 stroke earlier and get the lead on them and really piss them off. And that's what we did. So
pretty much every day. Yeah.
pretty much every day. And they were like,
That's what
bring
we
the
live
stroke
for.
down.
Is this that same boat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as they that's Timmy Clifford stroking, followed by our Bo Mason, Bill Keller from Judge,
We were pretty fast until the bails.
and then
Yeah.
Chip Reardon and bow, Mickey Davis.
Oh, there we go.
Mickey came to the reunion in September. We hadn't seen him since graduation, but we had such a great time with Mickey. His recall was really, really good. But he was one of the more outstanding coxies we had.
Who's into that's Billy Kelliger too?
Billy Keller. Yeah.
It's extraordinary how much the equipment has changed.
You think?
Yeah.
And it's left to right, Butch Joseph, another legend. And then George and Chip and Bo.
Bob, I want to know
When did-
how come
was
we
it a-
never see you in any of these pictures.
We were freshmen. We didn't really count at the time.
Wait, George rode in the 2-seat?
Well, that was
Wow.
that was in the yeah, that must have been the yeah,
Wow.
Bo was there's a picture of the 8 coming up, so you'll see which where he is.
Okay.
Yeah, I was usually about 5.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, there's an 8 picture coming up. But that's
Who's
Bo
my
at
last one?
the
About
22
Bo at the IRA a couple years ago.
the 2022 IRAs. Bo was
Yeah.
there. Listen, Bo was there 3 days, and he drove over the hour plus from Brigantine every morning, 3 days in a row. Cooler full of ice. Got the most valuable player award.
What a great course. What a great setup that place is.
Yeah,
Where was it?
Princeton.
Mercer?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, like
unbelievable. What a perfect for rowing.
We had the Nationals there one year, the Summer Nationals. Mercer's a nice course.
You came on a good year, Bo.
Yeah.
We've
No,
had some rough days on Earth.
Well, that was just the end of the COVID. That was the class that you had 16 recruited kids.
Yep.
For seniors that year. So and that was a fast crew.
I'll tell you, the ergs really changed a lot. We had these one-arm monsters as opposed to the Drysiakers now, or the Concept 2s.
That was
Yeah.
the blue one, right, Pat?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then we had one, and then Port had to row like whatever, day 1 or 2, and then they'd switch it over to starboard.
Right.
Yeah, it had a counterweight, right? You had to lay a different.
The stones, you had to put the stones in.
I
Yeah.
remember going to camp going to the Nationals camp, and we hit the ergs at Marist, but we only had one erg. So these guys from Washington, and they were on the ergs all the time, and it
Yeah.
was amazing how much
Well-
difference being on them all the time makes.
Well, Marist, we had one erg when I was there.
Right.
And when I came back, Mike Somore and I went up there after about 25 years, and I came up there, and the boathouse was exactly the same as it was when I graduated. It was like, and the only difference was I had a bunch of more ergs. But we had one erg, which was okay.
Yeah.
When we were there.
Way different too, though. It was not the ergs that it wasn't the Concept 2s like they have nowadays.
Yeah.
Was that pretty common for other crews at that time? Like, was it common that a lot of teams were just doing a lot of running and lifting and not really using a rowing machine?
No, Yale had their own indoor tanks. We used to go up to Yale to row on their indoor tanks, but there was Penn had ergs. Everybody ran steps.
But you're right. That's interesting. The training method was mostly off the water, not rowing, but running and lifting. And now you're right. You can you can kind of train specifically on an ergometer, and get that cardio in, on a what do you call
We
it?
used we used to have tires, inner tubes on the big truck tires and fill them with sand and put them over our necks. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
do
but-
remember that.
And I used to run Champagne stairs for, I don't know,
And
after
you'd be
practice because
covered,
I was
you'd be
small,
covered
so I
in
would always
black
run.
soot from the tires. Yes.
You'd be
But
co-
the East German circuit was the killer. That was
Yes.
the one I hated.
the pen drum.
Yeah, the pen drill.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
called those the Beldens.
Yeah.
You call them East German
Campbell, that was
circuits.
the coffee cans with like some
It was a paint can,
plumbing
paint can
tubing.
filled with cement. You stick a bar in there,
Yep.
and 21 minutes. Go here, have a ball.
I actually made two of the a 40-pound and a 25-pound. I made it for Alexander when he was in high school, and when he comes home, he still goes out in the garage and uses them.
Oh,
Why?
and no one called Child Protective Services?
Nobody called. No. Well, the garage door is shut, so we don't.
Okay.
Advertise
Well,
that.
you guys remember Paul, right? Paul Scullin?
I remember Grandpa.
Okay. In his family, in Philadelphia, there's sewer caps. And you'll see it says Scullin Company. Everyone used to steal them and drill them out to make weights because no one wanted to buy weight sets. That was his grandfather's deal, I think. Scullin.
Nice.
Yeah, I think they went about 25, 35 pounds. Manhole covers.
Oh, okay.
You drill it out and you stick a metal bar through it and you got yourself some weights.
Yes, you did.
It was Campbell. It was pretty archaic. Yes.
So, as we're kind of wrapping up, you guys, I wanted to get a sense from you, what did you take away from Marist, from your experience rowing here? How did that change your life? Or what kind of life lessons did you draw from it? And have you stayed involved in the sport, or what kind of connection does that still have for you? All these years after.
Well, listen, if we're all on here, I don't even know what year I graduated. It was somewhere at 79 or 80. I did 5 years and I was still short a little bit, but I got done. I was an accounting and business major, and I thought I was 6 credits short, and I caught them up, and I was 1 credit short. So I ended up taking golf at ACC, which was my toughest course, because we'd go to the bar Monday night, and I had to be at ACC to take golf inside in the gym at like 7:30 in the morning. So that was a rough ride. So anyway, but listen, if you're still in touch with people for 40, 45 years, I think that's a good thing. So you've met a lot of great people up there. It was a lot of fun. The cafeteria was awesome when we got there. And it was just, we met a lot of nice people, and the education was for myself. I was happy to get it, but I went up there to row and enjoy myself.
Yeah.
And I occasionally attend a race.
Um, uh, I would have to say the biggest takeaway was the work ethic, that that it stayed with me. That we worked really hard, and when I went off into the business world, it was like, you know working 10, 12 hours a day did not bother me. Yeah, the friendships have always stayed. It's funny, that fraternity, that bond is never left. I got a call the other night from someone I rode with back in 77, 79, and he reached out to me from Idaho because he kind of missed me. And I thought that was really, really special. But
Who was that?
huh?
Who was
Well,
that?
I spent time at Cornell, and this was
Okay.
a Cornell guy. And it's funny, speaking of Cornell, I always thought, oh, I want to go to a better school. And I spent 2 summer sessions at Cornell, and these classes were just, these were like classes with 50 to 100 people in them. And you remember the classes at Marist were like, 12, 15, 20 people. It was, we were really blessed with that kind of intimacy with our with our professors or instructors, that in this small setting, I look back on that and I'm like, wow, it was, whether we took advantage of it or squandered it, it was still, a great experience being on that small campus. It's funny, my son went off to the University of Michigan, and coming from a small town, small school, he got lost in that, and ended up transferring to a small school where he was a rock star and thrived in the smaller environment, and there's something
Yeah.
to be said about being, a big fish in a small pond. And I think we were all kind of felt like big fish in this small pond. So, between, the friendships we had, our mentors that guided us, I think for me that stayed with me, my entire life. Bill Austin I feel like he kind of saved my life. Joe Eckelman was this wonderful mentor. Bill Sanford, who got me involved with the Syracuse Chargers program. I've often said to Bill, thank you for saving me. I could have probably ended up in juvenile detention somewhere. but yeah, it was a great experience all around.
Again, I have to ask you a question. Do you still have that hacksaw blade?
Yeah, exactly. See, I could have.
I'm just
I could have gone the wrong way.
a friend of mine asked me to ask you that.
That's funny, Bo. John and I thought we were like so smart. Like we're gonna beat the system. We're gonna be able to make free phone calls. Again, it didn't work.
How about you, Pat?
Yeah, I got to agree with Dan and Bo. That it has a lot to do with dedication, work ethic. We all went to school for different reasons, but one unique reason was that we all wanted to row. And Marist gave us the opportunity to row. Bill Austin gave us the opportunity to pursue something we really, I think we all loved it. So it was
Loved it.
It was great. I mean, there weren't many people in my degree. I have a degree in economics. I think Mike Somar has a degree in economics. Maybe there was 4 other kids in the school at the time. Now everyone gets a degree in economics, I guess. But it did help, and the persistence and determination is what I get out of rowing. I rowed for a while after college. I competed, tried to compete, and then saw I wasn't competing, so I sold my boat and got married. But it all went well. It seems the life lessons are good, the camaraderie is good, the team spirit or the team cohesion is good. Knowing you could trust somebody else, that's a big deal, especially if you're coming from being a single sculler to rowing in a crew boat, which I did that, and it's good to know you can trust people, and it helps a lot. And Marist gave that to us. Marist gave that to us, and the teams were good. We were highly competitive. Everyone seemed to get along. Dan only hit me a couple times in a boat. He reached over and punched the crap out of me. But
some of those fights on the dock were epic.
Yeah.
Bob, how about you? Since you were a part of this class, can you answer that question too?
Yeah, well, I came in fall of 75. So my freshman year, 76, in the spring, we were coached by Joe McHugh, and we had, like I said, 16 recruited guys. We had a couple of guys from Buffalo, but it was a good. Our final freshman 8 ended up with 4 experienced and 4 inexperienced. Bob Keller, was one of them. He was a football player who turned into a rower, but we were kind of in awe of the upperclassmen because they were just setting the pace. They were, but we melded ourselves into these guys, and then I think unfortunately the recruiting took a dive a little bit. So by the time we were juniors and seniors, the program wasn't as deep as it was when we were freshmen. But I got to tell you, it's been what 40 plus years, and the friendships we got still exist today. And it just, the thing I took away from it is that almost everybody on that team would do something to help the other guy, right? While you were there.
True.
Now that could be like if I found Richie Neal in the snowbank outside of the caboose at 3 a.m, I would help get them home, right? But later on in life, if somebody's struggling a little bit, you're first on the phone to call. You're first to call and help out and see, and that still exists. And I think you just can't buy that kind of stuff. And we're blessed to have so many guys coming back together over the last several years. And the thing I love the most, and I said it on the last podcast, there's guys like, I know Bo and Danny have been to the reunions. Hope at some point we'll get Pat up there, but these young kids that graduated 15, 16, 2020, 22, they look up to these guys, to our classes. And that's all, whenever I'm there, that's all they talk about. How's Bo? How's Bo? What's Bo doing? And it's really, really cool. Really cool.
But there's nothing like waking up and then going down to the boathouse and going out on the river and it's glassy and going out there for a little row.
Yeah, a little mist on the water.
Yeah.
Well, and I think
that
the thing that was different for us was that we had, and I know you walk 3 miles in the snow uphill, when you're Abe Lincoln, whatever, but we just did a lot of things that I think the kids take for granted. For instance, in '78, when we went to FIT for training, Gary decided that he was going to send the whole team in 2 huge Winnebagos. So imagine the biggest Winnebagos you could find and stuff 22 kids in Winnebago. But wait a minute, wait for it. One of the guys driving the Winnebago straight through 26 hours was Bo Mason. So you had a student who was driving this huge Winnebago with all these kids' lives in their hands.
And no one died.
And no one died. And on the way home,
that's pretty unbelievable.
On the way home on Easter Sunday, the Winnebago blew a piston rod of the motor somewhere in West Virginia, and we were stuck in a diner on Easter Sunday, and Gary Caldwell had to send like 3 rent-a-cars to come get us. So, I mean, some of the stuff we did, you just take for granted. Now these kids go in luxury buses. When we were freshmen.
What you're describing is they would probably choose that over the bus. The current athletes would, if they could. If I told them that was an option, they would be all in on that.
So Campbell, picture this: I was a freshman, and you still have the launches, the old launches, right?
Yeah.
So you take a station wagon, and you take the launch, and you flip it over, and you put
Joe
it on.
Joe was the owner of the station wagon.
Joe 1-2.
Put the launch on top of the station wagon, and you put all the luggage underneath the boat. You get 2 metal rods that go up the front near the headlights to hold the thing up. So you got this launch that's going from the front to the front of the car, from the back to the front. And then you put 8 guys in that car, 8 guys in the station wagon, and then you drive 26 hours straight through. Butch was driving one time through South Carolina. It was like 90 miles an hour. He's driving in the pouring rain, and we were all sleeping. And we all woke up, and next thing you know, Butch is laughing, and he's driving 90 miles an hour in the rain somewhere in South Carolina. And, there but for the grace of God go I, but I don't know how we all survived. But
I know, no one died. And God was protecting the fools, I guess. But
yes. So, I mean, it made us the men who we are today, whatever the hell that means. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we have time for. I want to thank you guys for joining us,
Coach.
And being a part of our podcast. I've really enjoyed kind of just hearing about this era, because it's not a time in the program that we hear a lot from, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys at reunions and stuff in the coming years.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for doing a great job.
Bo and Dan.
All right, thank you for doing a great job. And good to see you, Cocktail, and Dan. Always a pleasure.
Good to see you.
Well, you'll see Dan and Pat in the Marist pair coming down the Charles in October. And by the way, Dan and Pat, just so you know,
They need a coach.
I sanctioned it the other day, but Bo is now your official coach.
Boom.
So,
All right, guys, get on it.
So he will be walking you down to the dock.
I'll be
And-
sending you training
Yeah,
ideas.
Yeah. So
You guys
Bo-
do the legwork and I'll do the rest.
Yeah,
Right.
Bo is your official coach.
All right, guys.
And Bo said he's gonna wear a uni.
Bo didn't say that.
Hello, viewers. I just wanted to say thank you for stopping by today to watch our second episode of the Marist Red Fox Navy Reflections podcast, and remind everybody that our Giving Day is coming up this month, March 20th. It's a Wednesday. I hope you'll join us that day in supporting the Marist men's crew team, all the amazing experiences that we bring to our student athletes every year. Thanks a bunch in advance for your generosity. Go Red Foxes.